Today we're in Grove Hill Cemetery in Hanoverton, Ohio, at the grave of a witch who was violently murdered by the townspeople and buried in this cemetery. Now, it's rumored that she was hanged, but before her death, she vowed to return from the grave to gain vengeance on her persecutors and then destroy the town. Her grave was surrounded by chains and talisman to keep her bound in eternal rest, but over the years, the chains have fallen away a little at a time, edging the town of Hanoverton ever closer to its impending doom. This is the tale of Christina Sloan, the so-called Witch of Hanoverton. A tale with a surprising twist. So, if you're curious, let's take a walk through history. There are two stories about Christina Sloan, and possibly even two Christina Sloans. Stay with me here, because this is a bit strange. Irish immigrant George Sloan, a prominent citizen of Hanoverton and manager of the local mercantile, had a daughter, Christina, who was very beautiful. Christina certainly caught the attention of every young lad in town, but she was also noticed by the local clergy. The town's pastor became quite smitten with Christina. It seems he tried to suppress his feelings for her, but his fondness grew into obsession, and he was compelled to act on his feelings. The pastor approached Christina and proclaimed his love for her. Christina did not reciprocate. Dejected and embarrassed, the pastor returned to his home. His feelings for Christina did not fade, however, and again he sought her out. Now, Christina once again rejected the pastor's advances, but this time he left angry. His obsession then turned deadly. If he could not have Christina, then no one could. The pastor began a campaign to convince the townspeople that Christina was using her beauty to bewitch the men of the town. After all, how else could a man of God be tempted as he had? Finally, the pastor's plan was in full effect, and the townspeople formed a mob to capture Christina and bring her to justice. It was decided that she would be hanged as a witch, and at that point, Christina, seeing that her life was about to end, threatened to return from the grave, seek her vengeance on her persecutors, and then destroy the town if they didn't let her go. Christina was buried in Grove Hill Cemetery, and her plot was surrounded by chains and the occasional talisman to keep her entombed for all eternity. But as you can see, the chains have rusted away and the talisman are no more. So does this mean Christina Sloan has returned to exact her revenge? Well, perhaps yes. Supposedly, at the time of her hanging, the town of Hanoverton was booming. The Sandy and Beaver Canal ran right next to the town, bringing supplies, people, and business to the area. This booming economy was short-lived once the railroad replaced the canals. So with the canals closed and the railroad bypassing the town, the businesses and the people moved away, leaving Hanoverton a virtual ghost town. But there is another story about Christina Sloan, a story of infidelity and murder. So it seems our patriarch, George Sloan, was an upstanding citizen in the community, but he had a penchant for the ladies. George's unfaithfulness to his wife was the town's worst kept secret. And unfortunately for everyone involved, George's infidelity caught up with him when his mistress became pregnant with a daughter whom she also named Christina. Now, once the pregnancy was announced, George dissolved the relationship and never owned up to his responsibility. So, being born out of wedlock in the 1800s, well, that was certainly stigmatized. Christina grew up poor and had very few friends, but always knew that George Sloan was her father. Once Christina was in her 20s and on her own, she approached George. She told him that she knew he was her father and she was hoping he could help her financially. Of course, George denied her request, claiming that he had no other children and she was merely looking for a handout from a stranger. Christina became angry and told George she knew he was her father. She was going to make sure everyone in town knew it too. Not wanting his reputation smeared, George hired some Irish friends to visit the shack Christina was living in and send a message to her that she should keep her mouth shut. And unfortunately, the situation got out of control. Perhaps the thugs didn't understand their instructions or a struggle ensued. Either way, Christina was dead. Feeling responsible, George relented and had Christina buried in a plot designated for his family. Not wanting to disgrace his family, though, the burial happened in secret during the cover of night in an unmarked grave. There's no way of knowing which tale is true. It's likely that our first Christina died during the cholera epidemic, although there are no records to back that up. It's merely a theory of mine. In fact, there are no records of Christina whatsoever, except for the headstone. And what I find most interesting is that of all the people buried in the family plot, it is Christina's headstone that has the least amount of information. No birth date, no death date, only that she was 22 years and 2 months old. Oh, and as for the second Christina, it is said that the ground-penetrating radar has been confirmed that an unmarked burial is here, but it's impossible to say who it is. It could be that this is the grave of George's illegitimate child. Not knowing her actual information forced those who buried her to provide what little information they had for a headstone. Or perhaps this is the legitimate child of George and his wife Jessie, marked with a headstone that citizens of Hanoverton approved, trying to wipe her memory from the annals of history, an attempt to forget what they did to rid themselves of the Witch of Hanoverton. Thanks for watching today, folks. We have links to our Patreon and our merch shop in the description below, as well as links to all of our social media. And if you would, please take a moment to like, subscribe, comment, and share this video. I would certainly appreciate your support. And we'll see you next time as we explore more curious history. Take care.